Hi guys, Mrs. Pierson here. Welcome to math. I know this is going to feel unusual, but the good thing is you can hit pause and scroll back and re-listen to things that you might have missed and work at your own pace. Okay, today our learning target is I can multiply decimals. If we were in the class, I would have you repeat that. We're going to focus on what we're going to be doing with that learning target. Identifying the verb, as you know, our verb phrase would be can multiply. We all know what multiplying is. And our noun that we're going to identify is decimals. And we all know what decimals are. So we're going to be multiplying decimals today. In order to do this learning target, we do have some success criteria, meaning things that we have to be able to do first in order to be successful with our learning target. So let's take a look and make sure that we're up on that. All right, our first thing is I can count digits. It's literally that basic. Can you count digits? So let's take a look at this number right here. Can you count how many digits there are? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 digits. If I asked you, can you count how many digits are behind the decimal? How many digits are right here? You would count 1, 2. So counting digits. There's 1. I can identify a decimal. Just identify where the decimal is. If I said, where's the decimal in this number? You know, you would look for here. You would say, oh, the decimal is between the 4 and the 1. If you were reading this decimal, you would say 724 and 13 hundredths. So identifying where the decimal is, counting digits. All right, last thing we need to be able to do, I can multiply whole numbers. We spent a lot of time on this year. We're going to make sure that you can do this skill. This is our main skill we need to be able to do, in order to multiply decimals. We've multiplied 2-digit times 1, and then we've moved up to 2-digit times 2-digit. So I'm going to ask you in a moment to hit pause and do just this problem. We have 25 times 3, so go ahead and hit pause and do this problem for me and then come back. Okay, let's take a look and see how you did on this problem. We know that we start with a 3. 3 times 5 would be 15. 3 times 2 would be 6, plus 1 would be 75. So if you were okay on this scale, you should have had 75 whole. All right, the next one I'm going to ask you to hit pause and do would be 25 times 43. So it's going to be just like this, only now we're going to be multiplying the 4 or the 40, which don't forget that requires you to place a 0 underneath the ones place before you start to give 4 a turn. So give this one a try, hit pause, and then come back. Okay, let's see how you did. For the first step, we should get the same thing we got here. 3 times 5 is 15. I'm going to carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So for my first row, I should have 75. We talked about the fact that we need to place that 0 here because this is really 40. We're going to give 4 a turn. 4 times 5 is 20. I'm going to carry that 2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 would be 10. I need to add both columns, or rows rather. That would be 5, 7, 0, 1. So 1,075 is what we should have gotten on the second one. So now we've checked our success criteria, and now we're ready to start with our learning target. So we're going to come over here. I've written down the steps for I can multiply decimals. These are going to be our 3 steps. Step 1, you'll be multiplying the whole numbers, and I'll take you through this. Step 2, we'll be counting the number of digits behind the decimal. And then step 3, we'll be placing our decimal last. I'm going to take you through these steps, but I'm going to ask you to copy these steps down into your notebook before we start practicing together. So go ahead and hit pause and count these, copy these down. So I'll give you a minute to go ahead and copy those down. Okay, now that you've copied those down, let's take a look at this problem using these steps. So the first thing I asked you to do is just multiply the whole numbers. And you're going to notice here, wait a minute, that's not just whole numbers, that's 3 4/10 times 5 whole. Well, what I'm going to ask you to do is to ignore the decimal for a moment and just multiply the whole numbers using the algorithm that we've been using all year. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 would be 170. And you say, wait a minute, what about that decimal? Because clearly $3.40 5 times would not be $170. So we still have to place that decimal down. Our second step is count the number of digits behind the decimal in the problem. So when I come back to the problem, the number of digits behind the decimal, well, I have 1 here. And here, this is a whole number. I have no decimal digit or decimals here. So I just have 1. So I'm going to give myself a little 1 to remind myself. I come down, and that means my answer needs to match the number of digits behind the decimal in the problem. So I had 1 behind total here. I'm going to come down here, and I need to place 1 behind here. So my answer would be 17. It could be written as this because we wouldn't necessarily need to write that, but that wouldn't be incorrect. So 17 whole would be the answer there. We're going to go ahead and practice some more, so don't feel stressed out. Let's go ahead and try where we have a little bit more decimals. So we're going to give that a try with the same steps. We're going to ignore the decimals and we're going to multiply the whole numbers. So this is really 24 times 6. 6 times 4, 24. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 2 more, 144. Now I need to place the decimal, but where do I put it? Well, I'm going to come back to the original problem, and I'm going to count the digits that are behind the decimal. I have 1 here, but this time I also have 1 here. So we need the total. So 1 here plus 1 here is 2 total. Again, 1 digit here, 1 digit here, that's 2 total in the problem. So I'm going to come down here and place 2 behind in the answer. So 1, 2. Let's double check. I have 2 behind here. I have 2 behind here. They're matching. Okay, we'll do some more. We're going to ignore the decimals and multiply our whole number. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. I'm finished with that first ones place. I'm going to the 10, so I have to have a 0. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. I need to add both rows. And this is going to be one of those tricky ones, so watch this. How many digits do I have behind the decimal here? I have 2. How many do I have here? I also have 2. 2 and 2 is a total of 4 behind in the problem. I need to come down, and I need 4 behind in my answer. Well, if I put it here, that'd be 1, 2, 3. Uh-oh, I don't have 4 digits. I still must put 4. So I bet you have a guess of what I can place that has no value, and that would be a 0, so that I can have 4 behind. This is one of those tricky exceptions that you'll run into sometimes. Okay, I know right now normally we'd be stopping, we would be repeating our learning target. I can multiply decimals. We'd be stopping and answering questions. It might feel weird that you can't do that, but that's okay. I'm going to do a few more. I'm keeping the multiplication more simple because that was one of our success criteria. I just want to focus on placing that decimal right now. So we're going to ignore the decimals. We're multiplying our whole numbers only. 4 times 5, 5 times 1 plus 2. I'm placing that 0 because I'm done with the ones. I'm going to the 10s. 2 times 4 and 2 times 1, that was from before. I'm going to add that up. So I have 350 as my digits. Now I need to place that decimal. I have 1 behind here and 1 behind here. That is a total of 2 digits that are behind the decimal in the problem. I come down. I need to have 2 digits total in the answer. If I place it here, that would be 1. So I place it here. That would also be 2 behind, matching. Okay, hopefully that's starting to click. There'll be a few practice problems you'll see in the rest of the slide. We'll be practicing Tuesday, we'll be practicing Wednesday, and then you'll have a quiz on Thursday. All right, best of luck. Don't forget you can always make up problems and use a calculator to check your answers. Thanks for joining.